Black women's leadership is not a niche. It is not a moment. It is not a trend. It is the most sophisticated, resilient, and field tested leadership intelligence this country has ever produced. For generations, it has been documented only in the rooms where it happened, not in the textbooks, not in the case studies, not in the mainstream literature on leadership. Hello, and welcome to Revolutionary Leadership, the bi-weekly podcast that shines a spotlight on the visionary leadership approaches Black women have cultivated for generations, yet are too often overlooked. I'm Dr. Kerry Mitchell Brown, a culture architect, racial equity strategist, and scholar of organizational change. For more than 20 years, I have helped leaders, organizations, and communities reimagine what's possible when equity and authenticity guide the way. Each episode will dive deep into conversations that illuminate how Black women integrate community care, radical self-prioritization, and collective capacity building into transformative leadership practices. Together, we'll expand what leadership can look like and what liberation through leadership truly means. Because this is where Black women's stories become tomorrow's blueprints. Welcome back to Revolutionary Leadership, where Black women's stories become tomorrow's blueprints. Revolutionary Leadership launched on January the 1st, 2026. I had recorded episode 1 before the world flipped its calendar, alone, in front of a microphone, opening a podcast by naming 2 archetypes that have followed Black women leaders across every sector, every generation, every institution they have ever dared to enter: the Savior and Scapegoat. I told you then that this show was not going to be about inspiration. It was going to be about infrastructure. 16 episodes later, I am back in this seat alone, the same way I started. Today, we are building something, the map of what this season means when you see it all at once. Season 1 had an architecture, 4 movements, none of them random. Movement 1 was about naming the trap. Episodes 1 and 2, you cannot build something new until you can see the cage you are standing in. We named it, then we stepped outside it. Movement 2 was about the external work. Episodes 3 through 6, financial protection, strategic voice, formation moments, organizational politics. The outside world is real. You have to navigate it. And 4 women showed us how. Movement 3 was the internal work. Episodes 7 through 11, joy, peace, non-negotiables, alternative systems, organizational wellness. You cannot sustain revolutionary leadership if you are running on empty. Movement 4 was the institutional close. Episodes 12 through 15, crisis leadership, strategic repositioning, cultural identity as power, integrating architecture. 4 women asked and answered the question, what does it look like when revolutionary leaders are running institutions? Before I walk you through each blueprint of this season, I want to give you one question to hold. Look back at this entire system. Which single framework are you still not fully using? Not all of them. Pick one. Hold that, because we are going to build toward it together. Now, let me walk you through what we built episode by episode. Episode 1, Breaking the Savior Scapegoat Trap. I opened this podcast by naming both archetypes because I lived them. Being brought in to fix what was broken, being blamed for what was already destroyed. Revolutionary leadership is the third option. Everything this season built on that question. Blueprint 1, revolutionary leadership is not the absence of challenge. It is the refusal to be defined by the trap. Episode 2, Giant Steps in Revolutionary Leadership, featuring Leilani M. Brown. Leilani drew a line between friend raising and networking that I have not stopped thinking about. You don't collect contacts, you build community that can hold the weight of what you are trying to build. Most downloaded episode of the season because that conversation reminded every listener she is not alone. Blueprint 2, collective capacity beats individual heroics. Build community first, the strategy follows. Episode 3, Why Financial Protection is Leadership Power, featuring Leslie Batson. Leslie made one thing clear. You cannot lead from a position of financial vulnerability. Financial protection is not about wealth. It is about freedom. The freedom to say no, to take the risks that matters, to walk away from what diminishes you. Blueprint 3, financial clarity is not a side issue for women who lead. It is the foundation beneath every other strategy. Episode 4, The Strategic Voice, featuring Monique Russell. Monique gave us the communication framework I wish I had 20 years ago. The strategic voice is not about being louder. It is about knowing when to speak, what to say, and how to say it in the way that the room actually receives. Communication is strategy. Blueprint 4, how you communicate is not style. It is strategy. Your voice is a leadership tool. Use it with intention. Building your leadership toolkit, the Formation Moments Framework, featuring Cheryl McDuffie James. Cheryl gave us language for the moment every leader goes through, and very few have framework for when the path you planned is not the path you are on. Shift, reset, detour. These are not failures, they're data. Blueprint 5. A detour is not a disaster. It is a redirection. Learn to navigate all three: the shift, the reset, and the detour. Episode 6, The First Chair, with Stephanie Medina. Stephanie had mastered organizational politics in one of the most traditionally structured institutions in the country. What she gave us was permission to learn how power works without calling yourself a sellout for knowing it. You cannot make room for someone else if you hadn't figured out how the room operates. Blueprint 6, learning how power works is not compromise. It is preparation. You lead for the next person, not just for yourself. Episode 7, Burnout is Information, featuring Dr. Kerry Ann Peart. Dr. Kerry Ann stopped me mid-conversation with one sentence. Burnout is not a personal failure. It is information. It's your body and your spirit signaling that something in your leadership ecosystem is misaligned. And joy, real joy, is the signal that tells you when you've gotten it right. Blueprint 7, burnout is a diagnostic tool. Joy is a strategic indicator. Both deserve full attention. Episode 8, The Power of Peace, featuring Dr. L. Zakia Newland. Dr. Zakia gave us the 4 A's: acknowledge, awareness, action, and acceptance. And she wrapped it into something I hadn't heard say it so clearly before: radical self-prioritization as a leadership act, not a trend. The power of peace, choosing yourself with the same ferocity you bring every institutional battle. Blueprint 8. Radical self-prioritization is not indulgence. It is the discipline that keeps you in the fight long enough to win. Episode 9, When to Say No to Your Dream Job, featuring Portia Allen Kyle. Portia turned down a position with one of the most prominent organizations in the country. She did it because she had already done the work of non-negotiable mapping. She knew exactly what she was not willing to trade. That clarity does not happen by accident, it is built. Blueprint 9, non negotiable mapping, is a leadership practice. Knowing your floor is what keeps you from being talked off the ceiling. Episode 10, not a conference call, featuring Cerise Renee Murphy. Cerise had a vision in 2010 and built infrastructure around it. Lion Sky Publishing, Virtuous Con, Naruzu, an entire ecosystem for speculative fiction by and for BIPOC creators. She did not wait for existing systems to make room for her. She built her own, not a conference call, a conviction. Blueprint 10, when existing systems weren't built for you, build your own, not a workaround. It is the work. Episode 11, The Ripple Effect with Mills. Mills spent 7 years watching adults burn out and kids absorb the fallout. She called it the ripple effect. When adults are depleted, entire communities feel it. She built something different: nervous system regulation as a foundation, core values as compass, sustainable capacity as the goal. One person getting well does not change a system. Mills showed us what does. Blueprint 11, individual healing is necessary. Organizational wellness infrastructure is transformational. Build the infrastructure. Episode 12, Leading Through Crisis, featuring Chancellor Dr. Kerry G. Dixon. Chancellor Dixon showed us what it looks like to lead a beloved HBCU through crisis and use that crisis as a lever for transformation. Leading an HBCU means carrying in history, community, expectations, and the future of people who need the institution to hold. She does not just hold it, she moves it forward. Blueprint 12, crisis is not the interruption of institutional leadership. For revolutionary leaders, crisis is often where the transformation lives. Episode 13, The Translation Framework with Dr. Brooke Douglas. Brooke gave us 3 moves that let you carry your expertise across any sector, any context, any system. Lead the skill, neutralize the content, qualify the scope. Career transition is not a detour from leadership. It's a leadership in real time. Blueprint 13, lead the skill, neutralize the content, qualify the scope. Your expertise travels. Know how to carry it. Episode 14, Boss Ladyship, featuring Dr. Suzanne Morris Williams. Dr. Sue built her framework on a truth that mainstream leadership literature still does not say it plainly enough. Your cultural identity is not an obstacle to leadership, it is the source. The traditions of Jamaican culture that shaped her did not have to be filtered out of her to succeed. They were what made her effective. Blueprint 14, your cultural inheritance is not baggage. It is the intelligence that makes your leadership irreplaceable. And episode 15, The Integration Revolution with Dr. Arame. Dr. Arame closed our season 1 guest conversations with 4 C's rooted in hip hop organizing principles: community, connection, coalition building, and courage, not as concepts, as architecture. She modeled it by leading one of the most significant professional associations in occupational therapy while holding the fullness of who she is without apology. Blueprint 15, wholeness is not soft. It is the hardest and most strategic thing a revolutionary leader can do. 15 conversations, 15 blueprints, 1 season. Black women's leadership is not a niche. It is not a moment. It is not a trend. It is the most sophisticated, resilient, and field tested leadership intelligence this country has ever produced. For generations, it has been documented only in the rooms where it happened, not in the textbooks, not in the case studies, not in the mainstream literature on leadership. This is what this podcast is changing. Every blueprint we built this season is infrastructure that did not exist in recorded form before we built it. This is not small. I also want to say this. In the first episodes, I held the runner's show like a lifeline. By the end, it was a reference, not a crutch. The conversations got looser, more real. Episode 2 with Leilani has been our most downloaded episode from the beginning. We have exceeded over 1,000 total downloads at this marker, not because of marketing, because the work is real. And it is for you, the listener who carried this podcast on her morning walk, in her car, on her lunch break, wondering if what she is doing matters. It matters. You are part of this blueprint. Almost 20 years ago, I sat in a doctoral leadership seminars watching colleagues debate theories about women of color. That term did not always mean us. And when it did, we were always in comparison to someone else. I was the subject of their research. I knew that. I was also struggling to find childcare during comprehensive exams, raising 2 kids as a divorced single mother, trying to build a scholarly life inside institutions that had no architecture for the life I was actually living. The research and the reality were 2 completely different rooms. That is the disconnect I spent the next 20 years trying to close. On August the 4th, 2026, that work makes its way into the world. Revolutionary Leadership, a power playbook for Black women, published by Entrepreneur Books, a Forbes imprint. This is not a DE&I book. It is not a memoir. It is not inspiration. It is a power playbook grounded in more than 20 years of research and 30 years of practice, 2 longitudinal studies, more than 600 women across Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies, major nonprofits, government agencies, entrepreneurship, and a tradition of leadership we built that runs all the way back to the Underground Railroad and even before then. This book does 3 things at once: individual strategy, named frameworks, tools you can use Monday morning, a system redesign manual for organizations showing how to measure what actually moves people and stop running institutions on our invisible labor, and a historical record, not a memoir, a chorus. You are not underperforming. You are performing in the wrong direction. And the directions came from a map that was never drawn for you. This is what the book corrects. We do not just survive systems, we transform them. This is not retreat. This is refinement. We are not waiting to be validated. We are the validators. Lead with power, lead with care, change everything. The book is available for pre-order now. Go to revolutionarylead.com for the link. It publishes August the 4th, 2026. Read every episode framework breakdown at revolutionaryleadershipsubstack.com. Every blueprint from this season, annotated and ready to use. This is where we get deeper between episodes. Season 2 records this summer and launches September 2026, and it is going to be structured differently. Revolutionary Leadership Power Playbook for Black Women has 17 chapters. Season 2 will have as many guests. Each episode opens with a passage from the book, the framework that lives in that chapter. Then I introduce you to the woman whose story makes that framework real. The book and the podcast become one ecosystem. You get the written playbook and the living proof at the same time. Tune in. The door is open. Before I close, I have 3 specific asks. I invite you to do just one. If you are a leader, block 2 hours this week for a blueprint audit. Go back through the last 6 months. Which strategies from this season are you already using? Which are you avoiding? Which one starts this week? Write it down. That document is your season 2 roadmap. If you are inside an organization, audit your spaces. Ask one honest question. Are you celebrating individual turnaround while ignoring the infrastructure that would make those turnarounds unnecessary? If yes, change what you measure, change what you find, change what you call success. If you are an emerging professional, pick one cultural strength you have felt pressure to hide in professional spaces, not to announce, just to stop hiding. Let it be present in one conversation this week. That is how the integration starts. And for all of you, find me at revolutionarylead.com or any social media, Revolutionary Lead. Tell me your standout breakthrough from season 1. Tell me where you are building real relationships, infrastructure. Tell me how you're honoring your whole self as we move into what's next. I read everything. Your story is tomorrow's blueprint. I want to close the way I close everything that matters to me, with gratitude and truth. The truth is, I didn't know when I recorded episode 1 whether this podcast was going to find its people. I knew that I had something to say. I knew the work was real, but you don't know when you start who is listening. Now I know. To Leilani, Leslie, Monique, Cheryl, Stephanie, Dr. Carrie Ann, Dr. Zakia, Portia, Cerise, Mills, Chancellor Dixon, Dr. Brooke, Dr. Sue, Dr. Arame, thank you. You gave this podcast your blueprints. What you shared is going to outlast every one of us. To all of you who shared your testimonies, you were the proof of concept. And to you, the listener, who has been here from the beginning, or the one who found us in episode 7 and went back for everything, or the one who shared a single episode with a sister friend who needed it, you are part of what makes this platform special. You are not just an audience. You are the reason the blueprints matter. So season 1 is done. Season 2 is coming. The book is on the way. The revolution is infrastructure, and we are just getting started. And a very special thank you for my amazing producer, Bethany Hawkins at Crackers in Soup Productions. Thank you, thank you, thank you so much for helping to get this vision into the world, and to all of the ones that have supported me in making this come true. I am Dr. Kerry Mitchell Brown. Thank you for building with me. Thank you for listening to Revolutionary Leadership. If today's conversation sparked something in you, subscribe wherever you listen to podcasts and share this episode with another change maker in your life. Until next time, keep leading with purpose, joy, and revolution.